couldn't hear my own footsteps.
When Barbara Stanwyck walked down that staircase in a towel and an anklet,
perhaps I know what you mean, Mr. Neff.
Film noir was born. This is Double Indemnity, the 1944 masterpiece that taught Hollywood how to be wicked. Buckle up, because the story behind this film is just as twisted as the one on screen. A real murder inspired it all. James M. Cain based his novella on the 1927 murder of Albert Snyder by his wife Ruth Snyder and her lover, corset salesman Henry Judd Gray. Cain covered the trial as a journalist in New York. The murder was sloppy. They chloroformed Albert, strangled him with picture wire, and beat him with a sash weight. Ruth became the first woman executed in New York's electric chair, and a reporter snuck in a camera strapped to his ankle to capture one of the most infamous photos in tabloid history. That single image haunted Cain for years and became the seed of his darkest story. Hollywood said absolutely not for 8 years. When the story first hit Hollywood in 1935, the Hays office rejected it immediately. Joseph Breen, the moral guardian of American cinema, called it too morally corrupt for audiences. The problem? The murderers weren't punished enough. Adultery was portrayed too favorably, and the whole thing reeked of immorality. Paramount tried to buy the rights in 1936 for $25,000, but Breen vetoed it. It took 8 years and countless rewrites before they finally got approval in 1943, but only after promising to tone down the murder scene, cover Barbara Stanwyck more modestly, and cut the gruesome ending. Cain later joked that Breen owed him $10,000 for killing that original deal. Raymond Chandler hated James M. Cain's guts. When Billy Wilder asked Chandler to adapt the script, Chandler read Cain's story and privately declared it crude and offensive. The jealousy was real. Cain's "The Postman Always Rings Twice" had been a massive success, and Chandler, despite being a brilliant novelist himself, couldn't stand playing second fiddle. But he took the job anyway, probably for the money. The irony? Chandler's contributions, especially that razor-sharp dialogue,
There's a speed limit in this state, Mr. Neff. 45 miles an hour.
became some of the most quoted lines in film history. Chandler had never written a screenplay. Raymond Chandler, the legendary noir novelist, had zero experience in screenwriting. When Wilder gave him the assignment on a Friday, Chandler confidently said he'd have it done a week from Monday. Wilder was stunned. Scripts normally took 5 to 6 months. The following Monday, Chandler came back with 80 pages of what Wilder later called absolute nonsense, filled with camera directions and technical jargon instead of proper screenplay format. Chandler had written it like a novel with stage directions, completely missing how movies actually worked. Wilder had to teach him the basics from scratch. The writers despised each other. For 4 agonizing months, Wilder and Chandler worked together from 9 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon, and they loathed every minute of it. Chandler, a recovering alcoholic attending Alcoholics Anonymous, was annoyed that Wilder drank around him and took constant phone calls from young women. Wilder kept excusing himself to the bathroom just to escape Chandler's uptight presence. At one point, Chandler submitted a formal memo to Paramount listing his grievances, which included the fact that Wilder wore his hat indoors, chewed gum, and had the audacity to answer the phone during their sessions. Wilder later said working with Chandler was like pulling teeth without anesthesia. Wilder drove Chandler back to drinking. Despite being in Alcoholics Anonymous, Chandler fell off the wagon during production. Wilder later admitted with guilt, "The experience was so traumatic for Chandler that he later wrote their collaboration was an agonizing experience and has probably shortened my life." Wilder, feeling somewhat responsible, made The Lost Weekend, a film about an alcoholic writer, as his very next project, partly to try to explain Chandler to himself. The relationship was so toxic that they never worked together again. Chandler made his only film appearance. In the only footage of Raymond Chandler ever shot professionally, he appears as an extra in Double Indemnity. You can spot him glancing up from a magazine as Neff walks outside Keyes' office. It's literally a blink and you'll miss it moment. 3 seconds of literary history preserved on film. Chandler hated being on set and never did it again. Every major star turned down the lead role. Alan Ladd, James Cagney, Spencer Tracy, Gregory Peck, Frederick March. They all passed on playing Walter Neff. George Raft famously asked Wilder, "Where's the lapel?" expecting a scene where the character would flip his lapel to reveal a detective badge. When Wilder said there was no badge because Neff was the criminal, Raft walked away in disgust. This was the last in a long series of classic films Raft rejected, including The Maltese Falcon, Casablanca, and High Sierra. His career never recovered from these spectacularly bad decisions. Fred MacMurray thought Wilder was making a career-ending mistake, known only for wholesome, happy-go-lucky good guy roles in romantic comedies. MacMurray told Wilder, "You're making the mistake of your life." He insisted he only made little comedies and lacked the acting chops for a serious dramatic role. He even called himself a hack who couldn't handle something this dark. Wilder pestered him relentlessly for weeks until he finally gave in. MacMurray later called it the best picture I ever made, and admitted it was the first time I'd been offered a part which would require, in my mind, acting. Paramount hoped MacMurray would fail, spectacularly. The studio let MacMurray take the unsavory role specifically to teach him a lesson during contract negotiations. He'd been fighting for better pay and more creative control, so they gave him a role as a murderer, hoping he'd fall flat on his face and learn some humility. They wanted to prove he couldn't carry a dramatic role. The joke was on them. His performance became iconic and completely redefined his career. Suddenly, studios wanted MacMurray the serious actor, not just the goofy romantic lead. Barbara Stanwyck was terrified of the role. The highest paid woman in America at the time, Stanwyck feared playing a murderous femme fatale would destroy her carefully cultivated screen image. She was a little afraid after all these years of playing heroines to go into an out-and-out killer. Wilder challenged her with the ultimate dare. Well, are you a mouse or an actress? That sealed the deal. Stanwyck threw herself into the role with such intensity that she later said Phyllis Dietrichson was one of her favorite characters, precisely because she was so evil. That infamous wig was a complete disaster. Billy Wilder chose a cheap blonde wig to emphasize Phyllis's sleazy phoniness. A month into shooting, he suddenly realized how terrible it looked. But by then, it was too late to reshoot everything they'd already filmed. Paramount executive Buddy DeSilva looked at the dailies and quipped, "We hired Barbara Stanwyck, and here we get George Washington." Wilder later claimed the bad wig was intentional all along, part of the character's artificiality, but nobody believed him. Even decades later, he was still defending that wig. The anklet wasn't in the original novel. That famous gold anklet engraved with Phyllis? Completely invented by Edith Head and Billy Wilder. It doesn't exist in James M. Cain's novel. In the 1940s, America, anklets had a scandalous reputation, supposedly a signal that a married woman was available to other men. Wilder used it as visual shorthand for moral corruption, something Phyllis flaunts the moment Walter walks into her house. Film scholars have written entire essays about that anklet. Wilder called it part of the equipment of a woman married to this kind of man, someone she wants to get rid of. The camera lingers on it obsessively, and Walter even mentions it in his narration. "I kept thinking about that anklet of hers and the way it cut into her leg."
It's a honey of an anklet you're wearing, Mr. Dietrichson.
Edward G. Robinson took third billing and got paid the same. Already a major star, Robinson was initially reluctant to accept third billing behind MacMurray and Stanwyck. But at 51, he realized it was time to transition from leading man to character actor. And here's the kicker. He got paid the same $100,000 as the leads for significantly less work. Robinson only appears in about a third of the film, but he steals every single scene he's in. His performance as Barton Keyes became one of the most beloved in his entire career, and he later said it was one of the smartest deals he ever made. The film was shot under budget in record time, despite paying $370,000 in salaries to just 4 people, $100,000 each to MacMurray, Stanwyck, and Robinson, plus $70,000 to Wilder for writing and directing. Wilder brought the entire production in under budget, at $927,000. He shot it in just 43 days. Wilder considered Double Indemnity his best film because, as he put it, it had so few scripting and shooting errors. Every shot was meticulously planned, nothing was wasted. A real gas chamber was built for a lost ending. Wilder shot an elaborate alternate ending showing Neff's execution in a gas chamber. Paramount built an exact replica of San Quentin's gas chamber for $150,000. Wilder filmed for 5 days and called it one of the best scenes I ever directed. The sequence showed Keyes watching through the glass as Walter is strapped into the chair and cyanide pellets drop. Walter turns and locks eyes with Keyes one final time before the door closes. But after shooting the scene where Keyes lights Neff's cigarette in the office, Wilder had an epiphany. He realized the real story was about the relationship between those two men, and that moment, I love you too, was the perfect ending. The gas chamber would have been redundant. Test audiences liked the gas chamber scene, but the Hays Code called it unduly gruesome. Wilder cut it, and the footage has since been lost, though production stills survive. Raymond Chandler objected to the cut, but Wilder held firm. The real love story was between two men. Throughout the film, there's a recurring motif that reveals the true emotional core of Double Indemnity, the relationship between Walter Neff and Barton Keyes. In multiple scenes, Neff lights Keyes' cigar for him. It's a small gesture, almost paternal, showing their bond. Keyes even complains when his matches don't work, and Neff is always there with a light. In the final scene, as Neff collapses from his gunshot wound, barely able to stand, he fumbles for a cigarette. This time, Keyes reverses the ritual. He lights Neff's cigarette for him. Neff, dying, recalls an earlier conversation. "You know why you couldn't figure this one, Keyes? I'll tell you. 'Cause the guy you were looking for was too close. Right across the desk from you." Keyes responds quietly. "Closer than that, Walter." And Neff's final words, "I love you too." Many critics consider this relationship, not the femme fatale, not the murder plot, to be the true heart of the film. It's a tragedy about betrayal between two men who genuinely cared for each other. After shooting the scene where Phyllis and Walter dumped the corpse on the train tracks, Wilder's own car wouldn't start as he left the location. Standing there frustrated, he suddenly had an idea. He called the crew back and reshot the scene with Phyllis struggling to start her car after the murder. Wilder insisted MacMurray turn the ignition painfully slowly, creating one of the film's most suspenseful moments. Audiences squirmed in their seats, terrified the engine wouldn't catch and they'd be discovered. It was pure improvisation born from automotive failure, and it became one of the most referenced scenes in noir history. MacMurray wore his real wedding ring. Throughout the film, Fred MacMurray wears his actual wedding band, even though his character Walter Neff is explicitly single. Nobody noticed until post-production, and by then, it was too late to reshoot. Film buffs love spotting this continuity error today. Kate Smith launched a boycott campaign and made the film a fortune. Kate Smith, one of the most popular performers in America, organized a propaganda campaign urging people to stay away from the film, calling it immoral and corrupting. James M. Cain later recalled with amusement, "There was a little trouble caused by this fat girl, Kate Smith, who carried on propaganda asking people to stay away from the picture. Her advertisement probably put $1 million on its gross. The controversy only boosted ticket sales. People flocked to see what was so scandalous. Smith's crusade backfired spectacularly. Wilder tripped the Oscar winner out of pure spite. When Going My Way swept the 1945 Oscars, beating Double Indemnity in all 7 nominated categories, a bitter Billy Wilder literally stuck out his foot and tripped director Leo McCarey on his way to accept Best Director. After the ceremony, Wilder yelled loud enough for everyone to hear, "What the hell does the Academy Award mean, for God's sake?" Louise Rayner won it twice. Wilder was livid. The studio had instructed employees to vote for Going My Way, Paramount's other big hit that year, essentially sabotaging Double Indemnity's chances. But here's the thing. 70 years later, everybody remembers Double Indemnity. Going My Way is mostly forgotten. Wilder got the last laugh after all. The house still stands, virtually unchanged. The Dietrichson House at 6301. Quebec Drive in the Hollywood Hills looks almost identical today to how it appeared in 1944. Walter Neff describes it as costing about $30,000, around $500,000 in today's money. Today, it's actually worth over $1.5 million. Film buffs still make pilgrimages to see it, though navigating the narrow, winding streets to reach it can be as treacherous as the plot of the movie itself. The current owners occasionally find noir fans taking photos outside, from writers who hated each other to a star who wore the wrong ring, to a director who literally tripped his competition. Double Indemnity proved that sometimes the best art comes from beautiful disasters. It set the template for film noir and remains a masterclass in how to create darkness on screen. If you're hungry for more noir secrets, we present the kind of behind-the-scenes stories that make these shadows even deeper. Hit that subscribe button. There's a whole genre of darkness waiting to be explored. And trust us, you don't want to miss where we're going next.